to May 4th, National Detecting Day. So thank you everybody for coming. Darren and Leanne are putting on an amazing event here today. I'm just sort of going to wing it. So last night I was sitting there about 11 o'clock on the couch and I was starting to write out a speech. I don't want to bore you with just sitting here reading from a speech. So we're just going to wing it. We've got a few key points there, and any questions and answers that you want to do, yell out and I'll be happy to answer them. So I was just going to explain about myself. What is digger detecting? So you would have seen the branded clothing there. Dom is wearing one also, my youngest son. Digger detecting was basically started, look, I started detecting for gold and sometime after, about 6 months after, and finding bits of gold, I transitioned to the coins and relics, and I found the history most interesting and fascinating, unearthing old coins or belt buckles or buttons or something that someone has lost or dropped or discarded on purpose. So digger detecting was sort of founded through that, and it is very coin relic based. However, I do a lot of gold. I started with the gold, I do gold now, I've got 6,000, but we run a lot of coin relic machines. I give tips and tricks as we go, and we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, we're on Instagram, we do weekly videos, weekly live chats with our YouTube videos, and we give away tips and tricks on sites to go to, permissions and how to get them, how to approach landowners, places to go detecting, and what tips and tricks to run for different machines. So look, all part and parcel of the coin relic game. As I said, I am getting back into the gold a bit more, but I really love my coins and relics, and over the years, 7 years about I've been doing it now, I've found some fascinating items. You probably name it, I've probably found it. There's not much that I have to tick off my bucket list, but then again, the bucket list continues to grow. You keep adding to it. So what is coin relic detecting? As I said, that's mainly what I do, and it does differ from gold. I mean, as a gold detectorist, when I started out gold detecting, I had the mindset that I had an expensive machine that I had to pay back, and I wanted to go out and find as much gold as I could to help pay that back. You know, it's a bit of an expense to set yourself up, and with the gold machine to start with, it was a bit of an expense. So within the first 6 months of finding gold, and I found quite a few bits of gold, and to be honest, it was all great, and it was all paying the machine back, and it was all fun to find, but there's no history attached to it. And I remember one day we drove through a township, my father-in-law, who I do a lot of detecting with, and we drove through a township, and he said, we're on the way to a gold field, and he said, Luke, just drive this way quickly, I want to show you something, you might find it very interesting. So we drove through this little township, and he said I think there was a bluestone school up on top of that hill there, because you can see there's a little monument sitting there right now today. And there would have only been 10 bluestone blocks left to make this monument up. So it's obviously what's left remaining of the school. So with that, we continued on, and we went on gold hunting for the day. And all I could think about in my mind, the rest of the day looking for gold, all I could think about was the township that we just drove through, the old abandoned township. What was there? You know, I know there was an old school there. There's a little monument on the hill, but if there was a school there, there must have been a fair population for there to be kids there, you know, and a school to be founded. So all day up in Linton, walking around looking for gold, and all I could think about was basically this old forgotten abandoned township that we drove through. And to be honest, the coin and relic side of detecting had not really crossed my brain to comprehend what you could really find with a metal detector. You know, we all know we go out and look for gold. We don't often think about the coins and relics under our feet that we can find. So with that, I finished up detecting, and I went home and I started doing my research on this area. And with that, I knew I was going to transition to the coins and relics. I knew that I was going to go away from the gold, and I was going to shift over and try and find a bit of history. The only problem with that though is you can't do that with a gold machine. You can, but it's very, very challenging. You're going to be digging every single target, every single signal. So I opted over and I started researching coin relic machines, and what I come down to was a combination between the MINELAB Xterra and the MINELAB Equinox. And what I ended up choosing, of course, as many will know, is the Equinox, and I have not looked back. I've got the 800 and the 900, and in the last 6 years, transitioning from the gold to the coins and relics and running the Equinox 800 and 900, I've I can't tell you how much I've found. I've got gold sovereigns, I've got snake buckles, I've got cricket buckles, I've got old miners' buttons, I've got dice off the goldfield that were maybe confiscated by a policeman because gambling was illegal back then. It caused controversy and fights, and a lot of people were drunk, so they tried to stop that. So I've got all these wonderful, weird little items that have either come off the goldfields or have come from old house sites, even your local park, in your local town. You never know where things are going to turn up. I've actually got a few things here today that I will show you. Anybody's most welcome to come up and have a look, and we'll just show them at the end. But 3 of my favourite things I've brought here today, and I could have brought enough to fill this room, of course, but I can't. So I just brought 3 of my favourite things, but look, there's a lot out there that you can find. And if you want to have a look at some of the stuff that I have found, you can go back to the YouTube videos, you can go back to the Facebook videos. It'll not only show you what I'm finding, it'll show you where I'm finding it, and it'll show you how to find it. So pretty simple stuff, and it's all explained to the best of my ability as I go. So as I said there, the detectors that I use now. I did start out with the gold. It was the GPX 4500, my first machine. I opted to the Equinox 800, all MINELAB of course, and then went on through to the Vanquish series. A lot of the Vanquish series that I did get and have run, mainly due to my 2 sons, Dominic and Xavier. So they're great entry-level detectors, great coin and relic machines, and they will find anything that an Equinox will find. You just don't have as many settings to play with and things to muck around with as you do on the Equinox. So I run the Vanquish 440, the Vanquish 540, the GPX 6000, the Equinox 800 and the Equinox 900, and I'm about to kit out with some new gear, which I won't discuss right now, which we'll be looking forward to sharing and showing in the future as well. So, and once again, all on video, and as with my content, whenever I do a video, I don't like to go behind the scenes and learn it all and then come across as I know everything. If I get something new, I always like to learn it with my audience. So I like to learn it and learn together with you guys. So as you learn, I learn. I don't come on and just go rattle off a heap of stuff and you've got to keep up with me. We learn together. So if you're looking for tips or tricks or anything like that, I do recommend you jump on. There's plenty of playlists and plenty of videos that you can go through, and if you're having any questions about anything, if a video doesn't cover it, reach out and I'll happily create a video to cover it for you. So now the sort of sites, places that I visit to detect, Crown Land for gold is an obvious one. We all go there. We read our maps, we do our research, and we find a place to go swing. With the coins and relics, it's a little bit different. You can't just go into an open piece of bushland, or you can, but chances are every man and his dog's been there with their gold detector, and for you to even find a button or a coin, you might be searching all day. You can find other sites though, such as old house sites, old pub sites. I've actually got a few written down which I'll refer to. So for the modern coins, I generally go and detect around the parks, sporting ovals, and with that, sporting ovals, I'll just say, I always do the outside. I never do the inside until I've got permission, if I get permission through the club president or the owner of the ground or the caretaker. So I'll always do the outside of the sporting ovals, parks, race courses, even your Sunday market sites where they hold the little markets on a Sunday. People are always dropping coins. So if you're after those modern coins, they're great places to go. Your speedways and of course your beaches. And when you're talking about the old coins and relics, you can find them in the parks. You can find them even at some of the old sporting ovals, depending on when it was founded. But ideally, when you're looking for coins 100 years plus or relics 100 years plus, I'm going either into the gold fields, to old gold mining townships that are lost and abandoned now, or I'm looking for old house sites that are either fallen down and abandoned and nothing's there now. Maybe you might see a fruit tree, maybe you might see a pine tree, you might see a little dome-top well sitting out in the paddock, or a few bricks or glass scatter. You know, on a shiny hot day, you drive down the road, you look off into the right-hand side, you're likely to see the glass flashing back at you. Always stop and check it out, because it potentially could be a dump site, or it potentially could be an occupied old dwelling or house site. And I guarantee you get your detector out and you'll start finding the coins and relics. You just got to work through your trash. But to find the old stuff, I mean, ideally, I'm looking at touching on the old abandoned house sites, the old pubs. the old Cobb and Co coach stops, the old creeks and rivers beds. And creeks and riverbeds are a great one because you think water is such a necessity. I mean, we all need it, and we all needed it back 100 years ago. When anybody travelled, they travelled via creek or they travelled between creeks. They didn't go far away from fresh water. One, because you needed it yourself. Two, because your horse needed it. So you would stop, you would refresh your horse, you'd camp the night with your billy, you'd have water, a kettle, cup of tea, whatever. You'd often drop a penny or a coin or a belt or a buckle, what have you, and that's where I come along 100 years later and hit on. But you've got to do your research, you've got to find where those spots are. Another place would be, as I said, your ghost townships. Now there's not that many ghost townships that have not been sort of plucked over since the 80s. You know, I've read coin and relic books that I research townships now that I think I'm onto a good thing, a new thing. No one's ever been there before. And then I read a book, 6 months later, I pick up a coin and relic book, and John Tully or Doug Stone's talking about how they raided it back in the 80s. So, and they got hundreds of coins and tokens and snake buckles and sovereigns, and you know, I go there now and I think I've had a good day, but I'm only hitting on what they've left behind. So I can only fathom what it would have been like some 30, 40 years ago. But then again, the technology wasn't the same as well. So, how to gain permissions, that's probably the last thing I wanted to touch on. Is that I'll show you. I had a very small key pointed thing there. So look, how to gain permissions, that's probably the biggest thing, because I mean, anybody can drive past an old house, but it's having the courage to go stop your car, knock on the door, and ask them, you know, and how to go about it. Like, you know, you may not know what to say, you may not know what do I offer. Do I offer to detect their property and anything comes out? Do I keep it? Do they keep it? Do we go halves? You know, you don't often know. So the way I've worked and the way I will continue to work into the future and what's worked for me the best in the past is, and I'm not afraid to go knock on anybody's door, and if I get a no, which I've got a no in the past, I simply move on to the next. You don't let it deter you, you just move on to the next. And I used to think too, just getting off that a bit, I used to think, well, if I get a no, you know, that's not good enough, you know, I want to detect that property. Sometimes you've just got to let them go. Sometimes you can see that many properties that you want to detect and you'll get a no from the owners and you'll get hung up on it. Don't get hung up on it, just let it go, move on to the next, because the more you get hung up on it, the more it's going to take away from your time from getting on to the next house site, and the next house site is probably going to be better than the one you got the no for. So some of the house sites that I've been to that look like they will be the absolute best turn out to have nothing. And then other sites I go to where there's a little 2-bedroom wooden dwelling and you think there's not much occupation here, or the man that lived here probably didn't have 2 bob to scratch between his fingers. Well, guess what? You find gold rings, you find chains and jewellery and that many more coins you can't believe. But how I get those permissions though is, as I said, not afraid to go and approach people, but you need to be open and honest. I mean, I'm actually writing a book about this now currently, so it's going to be all detailed in a book. But you need to be open and honest. You need to be front up with the person. I mean, you tell me if I walked onto your property today, would you be okay with me just coming into your back paddock and digging holes? And if so, you know, what circumstances, under what condition would that be? You know, would you want to keep everything, or would you want to inspect where I've been detecting, make sure I've filled all my holes in? It's all about being upfront and honest with the landowner, basically having in mind what you're going to say to them. So you rock up, you knock on the door. Hello, my name's Luke Phillips. I run Digger Detecting. In this case, this is what I say. I run Digger Detecting. I'm also part of my local historical society. I have been for over 7 years, and that helps because you're showing straight away the person at the door that you're not here to dig holes and nick off again and just take whatever they've got in their paddock. You care about the history. You're here to uncover it. You appreciate it. You're here to basically uncover it and learn about it. And with that, I always offer the landowner, whatever I find, you are welcome to keep. Because in my mind, if I come onto your property tomorrow and you tell me no, what's to stop you getting a metal detector and doing it yourself? You letting me on your property is a privilege for me to step on. So the way I see it, everything is yours, and I have detected hundreds of properties and I've got hundreds of permissions, and I can guarantee you about 7 or 8 times out of 10, no one wants to keep anything. They just want to see it come out of the ground, A lot of farmers, I've actually had farmers tell me, mate, I appreciate you catching up with me, I appreciate you showing me what you found. I don't think my time. I've got cows to milk, I've got cows to feed. I think it's great what you're doing, but keep coming back and doing it, but don't bother showing me. And then you get other people, I've had farmers who want to keep everything right down to the scrap bit of tin and the scrap bit of nail and the glass that you've got with all the coins and buckles, and that's fine. I said some you've just got to work with the owner, and it's not about keeping everything, it's about appreciating the history. It's not about keeping it. If you have a very greedy approach to it, that's sort of the outcome you'll get back, or the feedback you'll get back. So a lot of the permission holders that I go and approach, I mean, they don't know me. I go and knock on their door, I explain who I am, I explain what I do with metal detecting. I take a portfolio book, which I should have with me here today. The portfolio book though is just an A4 folder, and it's just a heap of pictures that I've printed out and put together in the folder. Now that folder gives you something to talk about with the landowner. Instead of you just face to face with the landowner and them getting bored and thinking about all the things they need to go do while you're taking up their time, they've actually got something to look at. Because a lot of people will say to me, mate, you're not going to find anything but rusty nails and fence wire. But when you show them what you can find, when you show them what is on their property, which they never ever considered, that's when you've sparked an interest in them. And that's when they're more likely to say, yeah, go down the paddock, I'd love to see what you can do. Because you've shown what you can do, what you can find at similar properties, and they're all for it as well. They want the same thing on their property. So some landowners have said, I give everything up. Other landowners, they might keep a coin or a fancy little locket or whatever. Other landowners don't want to keep anything, and I simply take it home. Other landowners, I do display frames up and donate it back to them. So look, it's all etiquette, it's all doing the right thing. Your reputation will precede you, and a lot of the time I find that if I work on Mr. Farmer's paddock here, 6 months down the road I'm on the next farm across the road, because the farmers talk and the farmers say, you know, what's that young bloke doing in your paddock? I'll get him to come over and do my property next. And if he's been on your property, I trust him to come on mine. So it's all a trust thing, it's all a paying it forward thing and doing the right thing. And the moment you do the wrong thing, you jump a fence, you leave a gate unlocked that you shouldn't have, you know, always shut your gates. And I come off a farm, so I know the rules. But you always leave things how you find them, and you always have good etiquette. And the moment you do the wrong thing, I can guarantee you, you'll pay for it later. You will pay for it later. So I think that's about it for the talking. I was going to say, if anybody's got any questions, we're only 20 minutes in, I've got to fill more time. But if anybody's got any questions about a machine or a site or anything I've said, I know I've sort of probably rambled on a little bit. Derek, you know everything.
Did you want to discuss now about when you're finding relic bones on the ground surface using what would be grasp the principles of digging the hole, either with the digger or with the...
Yep, so look, it all depends on the site. Well, just in answer to, I think this is answering a question. It all depends on the site that you're going to. So, I mean, if I was going to a park, I've got a lot of permissions for public schools, abandoned schools, and also schools that are still in current operation today. And I do their ovals. Now, people might cringe and go, like they might drive past me and go, what's that man doing on that oval? You know, he's digging holes and my kid goes to school there and it's going to break his ankle next week. Well, not so, because I always fill my hole in. I dig as neat as I can. And in parks and schools and public places, you don't want to walk out there with a big pick. You don't want to walk out there with a big shovel. It looks crude, you're drawing attention to yourself. People do it, but that's not me, and that's not how I operate. The last 7 years operating, gaining these permissions and digging and whatnot, I've never had complaints, I've never had problems, I've never been kicked off a permission. I've only been invited on to the next one. Parks, schools, as Derek was saying, recovering the target, I will only use a hand digger. I will not use a shovel, I will not use a pick. I don't care how hard the ground is, I'll use a hand digger. If I cannot dig the ground, I'll wait till it softens up a bit winter time and I'll come back. Paddocks, gold fields, all that sort of stuff. Shovel, pick, sledgehammer, whatever you want to use, go your hardest. It doesn't matter. But when you're in the public view, public eye, you really want to recover your target as neatly and as discreetly as you can. Put all the turf back and move on. I think that's what you were sort of covering there, Derek. Yeah. And look, all sites differ. You know, you've got different grass, different soil, different targets in the ground, even on different days. So it all differs to, and look, it all differs to the site, your attitude at the time, what you're finding, and even the weather on the day, and even how you're feeling. You know, I often go out some days and I think I'm in for a really good day today, and I go out and within 2 hours I'm not feeling it. And I never ever. Gold's a bit different because gold, you've drove an hour, you're on the gold fields, you want to do your best, you want to put in a big day, you want to put a 7-hour day in and dig as many bloody targets as you can. With the parks and the coins, or with the coins and the relics, you can simply go to a park 10 minutes from home. If you're not feeling it after an hour, go home. Don't push yourself, because one of the things I've found, and I think with videoing too makes it a bit harder, but you know, it's sort of turned into a job now with videoing and that, and I've tried to never despise detecting, if that makes sense. I've tried to never make it to a point where I'm like, oh great, I've got to go out and shoot a video today and detect, you know. It's never become a chore. So when I do have those off days, I simply pack up and go home and try again another day. Or change sites, you know, change sites, and you might just change your whole attitude and change your whole outcome of the day. So I think Derek would have heard me say a fair bit on video. If you're not feeling it, move on, or if you're not feeling it, change it up. You know, don't stick with it, because sometimes you'll stick with it. By the end of the day, you'll be that angry, that tired, that sore. You'll put the detector in the cupboard, and a month later, you'll think about, oh, I've got a free day, so I might go detecting. But you'll think of your last experience where you slog your guts out and you dug 28 holes for only 2-cent coins and rusty nails. So to me, if I'm having a bad day, 2 hours in, I pack up, go home, I go do something else, or I change sites and I enjoy the rest of my day. Because I never ever want to diminish my experience detecting, and I never want to make it less enjoyable. So, and I do it a lot, so I need to make it as enjoyable as I can. I mean, I'm out 4 or 5 times a week detecting, so, and loving every bit, yeah. Look, I'm not against donating stuff. I mean, there'll be a point in my life where everything that I've found over the years, and look, there's a lot, it'll go to my 2 sons, Dominic and Xavier. They will hold on to it and look after it and appreciate it, I'm sure. And then, look, it'll go to their sons and so on and so forth. But if nothing else, I'd like to see this stuff go to a museum, because I believe that it's everybody's. It's the public's. It shouldn't be tucked away in a closet for no one to see. I mean, the whole thing of what I do. I mean, I started gold detecting. I explained about that, and I went into the coin and relic. I mean, I could go out and find coin and relic, and that's all very great. But I find in coin and relic, and every time I touch one, I think about who held it, who dropped it, who lost it, did they eat that night? You know, if they've lost a florin, I mean, that was 24 pence, that was 2 shillings, that was a lot of money. I mean, a florin was, what, a day's wage, a week's wage at some point in time, you know? If you lost a florin, that would almost like being us losing a $50 note out there today. I mean, it's not going to break the bank, it's not going to kill us, but if you don't have much money and you lose a $50 note, that's going to hurt. Got all the machines that we ran through, but the coils that I use. So, I mean, we've all got different size coils. We all see different size coils hanging on the wall. As some will probably know, you know, that the benefits of using a smaller coil, larger coil. Some others may not. But basically, if I was hunting around an old park, or if I was hunting a park and it was a big open park, and I had the 11-inch standard coil on, and I wasn't getting too much trash, I'd continue running that coil all day. If I got around areas that were just riddled with trash and you're getting a lot of built up tones, targets, you know, you really can't decipher what's what in the ground and you're having to really slow down your swing, that's when I'd start looking and opting for a smaller coil. A smaller coil, obviously, great if I had a coil in front of it, smaller 6-inch coil, if you've got a rusty nail, a coin, a bit of lead and a shotgun shell over here, you've got an 11-inch coil, it's going to be picking up all those at one time, so sending all those signals back to the detector at one time. If you've got a small coil, such as a 6-inch coil, what I like to call the sniper coil, you can get in between and individualise every one of those signals. So you can pluck out that that's a coin, you can pluck out that that's a rusty nail, shotgun shell at the back, you know, knowing your numbers and your tones, you can decipher what you want to dig and what you want to leave behind. So, I mean, the whole idea of coin relic treasure detecting and the detectors that we have, they're discriminatory detectors. So, I mean, they're built and designed to discriminate out the rubbish. People say dig it all, but I'm in the other mindset that if I know what numbers and signals that I'm chasing, why would I want to be digging the rusty rubbish? Why would I want to be digging the rusty nails if I know I can avoid them? And I know that's not always feasible. Sometimes, you know, you can't get away from them. You'll dig a rusty nail, then you'll dig another one, but then a shilling will pop out. So the small coils are, look, ideally probably my favourite coil to run. I'm not a big coil person. I like the big coils in a sense that you can cover large areas, you know, big open paddocks. I've got a lot of race courses that I do, and as you can imagine, a race course is a big open area, but there's only certain areas where people are standing. There's only certain areas where you're actually going to find the good stuff, you know, the coins, relics. You could walk the whole racetrack, but you might only find horse rivets and horseshoes. You're not going to find a coin, not unless the jockey had one or the rider had one on him. But the saddle paddocks are good ones, because the saddle paddocks in a race course, if you're looking at a big open race course and you've got the track running around there, the saddle paddocks are a great one. I mean, you could use a big coil, cover the whole race course, pick up a few pennies if you're lucky, a few other horseshoes, or you can put the small coil on, work that trashy ground around where you know the saddle paddock was, and that's where a lot of activity and a lot of signals are, but that's where all the coins are going to be hiding too amongst it all. So also obviously your start, stop, finish line, like your crowd line, that's going to be your next spot. But yeah, small coils, great for around the old house sites, trashy areas, parks, rec reserves. If I'm working at a rec reserve sporting oval, I'll always start with a 6-inch on the outside. If you don't have a 6-inch, here I'm saying about it, but if you're sitting there thinking, oh, I don't have a 6-inch coil, start with an 11-inch. Just start with something small that you've got. But a 6-inch ideally working around the outside is great. When the club president comes along and notices all your amazing work that you're doing and all your neat holes and all your cool stuff that you've found, I guarantee you, if you ask politely, he will give you permission to jump inside. Now I know that's a bit cringeworthy, but if you know you can dig properly, if you're not recovering targets and digging trenches like this, you know, you're only picking coins that are that deep, what's the problem? If you're filling your holes in, what's the problem? If you're removing, I've detected sports grounds and there's been people camping out there and they've left the big alloy tent pegs on the sports ground. Now, if I walk along and find a coin, that's great. If I walk along and find a tent peg that's going to go up through some football player's knee as he takes a slide mark, how much better is that? I mean, it's worth it. So it is a bit cringeworthy, but if you know what you're doing, you can do it properly. I see no problem. And if you've got permission, there's no issue. So work your out of the grounds with the small coil. Work around your old house sites, your real trashy areas, footpaths, doorways, around fruit trees, all great spots to hit with your small coil. As you work those areas, you start venturing out and the targets start lessening. That's when you put your bigger coil on, because you're not having to combat with so many signals in the ground and you're not getting that much information feeding back. And at the same time, if you run a 6-inch coil way out in the paddock, you're going to be doing a lot of swings to cover that ground. So as you walk out, change up your coils as the targets thin out.
What about when you detect demolished house blocks?
Yep.
What coil would you run on that?
Definitely 6-inch.
Yeah.
And to be honest, some house sites I go to, you can still see the outline of the foundation. Yeah. So it's really great. You can see where the footpaths ran. You've still got a fig tree and a fruit tree and the pine trees out. You know, you can really make the house. The house is not there, but all the concrete foundations are there. I'd get the 6-inch on, I'd start working in between. If it was a demolished house site where all the concrete is broken up and put in a pile, I'd work around the piles and I'd work out from there. So, and house sites, I will say, house sites are a really easy one to come across. Part of the Historical Society, I've gained access to a lot of maps over the last 7 years. And it's funny because my Historical Society, when I spoke to my president there, said, mate, I'd like to do a lot of research, and you know, you've got all these big filing cabinets, you can pull out the drawers, and you've got all these big laminated maps from the 1850s, you know, showing the original town structure and streets and rivers, riverways. I'd like to get them and take pictures of them, or you know, shrink them down in size and make like a book for myself so I can always refer to, so I'm not having to come back into the Historical Society 3 times a week and annoy you. He said to me from the get-go, $20 an hour to research or $20 a year to join. Go figure. So I've been a member of my local historical society for 7 years, and as I said, you're after research. I mean, my local library was a great one, but after about probably 6 months, I'd read every book on the shelf, and I'd even re-borrowed some and reread them again. You know, picked up information, scanning through, and then months later thought, oh, what was that book I read, and went back and borrowed it again so I could properly read it. But your research. Research through your local libraries is your first starting point. Your second one is your historical societies, and they are a wealth of information. And it's not only the information they keep in their cupboards, it's the information from the older generation that you get. And there's things that you cannot read in books. I've read that many bloody books. There's things you cannot read in books. You'll hear from the older generation. That'll never be written down. You don't know it unless you talk to people about it. So. And that's, I must say, some of the best connections I've made through detecting is just detecting in a park and someone wanders over and says g'day and just takes an interest in what you're finding. And then they'll often say to you, after you tell them about what you do, they'll often say to you, did you know about the old tennis courts down the road there? Or when I was a little girl, I used to play with my sisters down on the bank of the creek there, or around the lake we used to, take the cow and then get it of a night time, bring it home for milking. Things like that. So that sort of information you're never going to read in a book. You can only pick up through that older generation, and as we know, the older generation's only getting older, and we need to obtain that information as much as possible. So generally I'll go to the school and I'll start with the most obvious areas. I love modern coins just like anybody else, but that's not what I'm after. I'm after the old stuff. But I'll hit up the playgrounds, I'll pull a few coins, maybe the odd kid's ring, and you return it to the office because some little girl's probably looking for it. But I'll hit up the playgrounds, the most easiest, occupied, obvious spots first. And then I'll work your way on the ovals. And to be honest, ovals, the best spots are centre and goalposts and around your crowd boundary line. So if I walk onto a sporting oval and it's like, if it's a rec reserve sporting oval, obviously goalpost ends and in front of your club rooms where they sell drinks and pies and what have you, people are pulling money out, that's where you want to be. But at a school, it's a little bit different because you don't have a canteen at a primary school. My young fellas don't, thank God. So I just literally walk out and I will go to the goalpost ends, and then the next place I'd go would be the middle, or I'd probably go to the middle and walk out. After I've done the middle and walked out to the goalpost ends, I'll sort of walk around the outside, and I'll be thinking about if I was a spectator here today, if I was coming here today, it was a super hot day, where would there be shade? Where could I stand? If it was raining and there was a southerly wind, where would I want to stand up? So it's not just, walk around an oval and stand there and think, oh, that's where the spectator. As people, we like to naturally go to the nicest spot. You've got to think like a human, I suppose. You've got to think a bit of psychology, and you go onto these sites and you just think, well, if I was here as a parent for the day and it was 30 degrees, where's somewhere shady to spectate and watch my kid? And that's where you need to start detecting. So, same thing with on rainy days. I've done ovals where you go around the oval, you find nothing, you get one area and there'll just be a ton of coins, and you know that that's where the crowd every year stood or every match stood there. And then other parts are just dead. You might find the odd pull tab and the odd coin that may have been dropped in passing, but apart from that, nothing. So, yeah. Obvious signs, I was going to say before, so I was a delivery driver for many years. I don't do this full time, I wish. I'm getting there. But I was a delivery driver for many, many years, so that basically allowed me to, go knock on your door. I had a parcel for you, I'd go knock on your door. I'd give you the parcel and then I'd say, oh, by the way, could I possibly detect your property? So it gave me an in straight away, which was great. But I remember one property I did years ago, and I drove up there and it was a brick house, and I said to the lady at the door, I said, look, here's your parcel. By the way, I can't help but ask, I said, you've got out in the paddock there, you've got fruit trees and they've got to be over 100 years old. I can tell they're over 100 years old. But your house, it's red brick, probably 80s built, 90s built, like it's not that old. I said, what's the go? I said, you got a 90s built house here and 110-year-old fruit trees out there, like there had to have been something there prior. We went up there on the weekend, we got the detector out and we walked straight out to the paddock, turned it on, and within 10 minutes and kids in tow, she was actually filming me on Snapchat, me finding 1850s, 1860s old English Britannia coins. So we got silver thimbles, bottles, we got coins galore, we got belt buckles, we got a ton of stuff out of that paddock. And in the end, I did a display frame up. We returned it to about 3 months later. They got married in that very same paddock around the fruit trees, and they put on display all the stuff that we'd found for the wedding. So people got to go to the wedding, enjoy the wedding, and not only that, they were walking on the ground where all that stuff had been recovered from. So I didn't take anything from that site. I don't remember keeping anything. It was just a recovery and an enjoyment. So, and I shot videos there. It's all up on my YouTube channel. There's about 3 or 4 videos I did there. And we show the process of unearthing it all. We show the process of putting it in a display frame, and we show the process of handing it back. So, as I said before, reputation always procedure. Do the right thing. You know, people are worried about getting permissions, but the biggest fear is the fear within yourself. One thing too that's helped me gain permissions, I will say, is before you drive up that driveway, learn a little bit of history about the property you're going onto. So there's properties I've gone onto before, and I'll often go to the front door and I'll say to the owner, did you know there was a dairy down on the corner there? Or did you know that there was an old race course 2 k's down the road? He wouldn't have had a clue. He would have bought the farm 30 years ago, didn't even know, and he's astounded with the information and the research that you've done. And it obviously shows your professionalism, and it shows that you're not just some Joe Blow coming into his paddock and going to leave his gates open and dig holes and let your dog run after his cows. It shows your interest, it shows your integrity, it shows your respect for the property. So research, I've actually went to properties before and I've told owners that have owned properties for decades stuff they didn't even know. So, and they're fascinated to learn about it. And it's more of a chance for them to say, yes, go for it, go detecting, let me learn more. Yeah, so yeah, fascinating.